This is Bucket Talk, a monthly podcast taking you across America to meet the most badass tradespeople, industry leaders, and personalities. If you're looking to level up in the trades, you're in the right place.
All right, on this episode of Bucket Talk, it's the 100th episode of Bucket Talk, and it felt right to bring back one of the original hosts, Eric Girouard, CEO and founder of Brunt Workwear. Super excited to have my friend and my boss on the podcast again. You know, Bucket Talk started off really small in the garage, you know, just shooting the shit about trade-specific stuff, to now interviewing some big names like Travis Pastrana, Hannah Barron, Cowboy Cerrone, Diesel Dave. But the original thesis behind Bucket Talk was to bring light to the trades and construction, trials and tribulations in the trades, you know, different job opportunities and funny stories, sad stories, cool and unique stories. You know, Eric, take us back to the original on the bucket in my garage, just pile of beers late night talking about, you know, some trade stuff.
Yeah, so I think it was either 18, it was the end of 2018 or 2019. In the context of Brunt actually didn't launch until September of 2020, but I think it was that Christmas we were at a party together.
Yep.
And I knew Brunt was going to be coming 2 years down the road and had plans for that, but we started talking about starting that podcast at one of our friends' parties, and I think a couple weeks later, we showed up at your garage, at your old house,
Yep.
The downstairs garage. I think we started without any equipment, or maybe the first one we might have had some equipment, but we started there.
That was the little box that I could never get started, and you're like, oh, got to do it again.
So we had no idea what we were doing. AI didn't exist at the time. At least we didn't have access to it. So we were Googling how to buy equipment. We showed up to the garage, had this little box with some microphones. Jeremy didn't know how to run it, so I had to run it, and the podcast and the questions. But we brought a couple guys, local guys, younger guys, actually, which was the goal, the whole thesis for the podcast, which was we wanted to start the podcast. Ended up calling it Bucket Talk because when I was 14, my first job was roofing, and at lunch, I was the little guy, I was scrawny, and the real roofers that were up on the roofs would come down, and we'd sit down for lunch, and they'd grab the tailgate or grab a chair or something, and me and the second lowest man on the totem pole, we'd sit on upside down tarring buckets. And that summer, from a professional career standpoint, you think a little 14-year-old kid's going to get some advice from these folks, and it was the worst. It was, you don't want to go into this, like, don't ever do this, kid, like, life's terrible, life's miserable, all these things. And I was like, that was not enjoyable. So I was like, I'm never doing that again. Next summer, I ended up starting my own landscaping business and doing my own thing. But the reason we kind of called it Bucket Talk was instead of that experience that I had, which pretty much didn't scare me completely away from the trades, but probably could have and probably should have, was we wanted to have a positive story to talk to these young folks about different things in the trades and what's so exciting about them and how successful you can be and how fulfilling it can be and how much freedom you can have, and turn the Bucket Talk experience I had into a positive from a negative. And we just started just on our own trying.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody that we've had on the show for the most part understood the symbolicness of the bucket. You know, Jeff Barron had nailed it on a podcast. I mean, even down to the podcast with John Shevlin. He's like, I used to shit in a bucket in the corner at a job site, and I was like, all right, that's not this kind of podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't do that.
You know, as we were doing it in the early days, it was pretty cool. It brought a lot of the guys to the garage, you know, share stories, have beers, and just kind of unwind. And, you know, that's kind of been the garage thesis and kind of why we've done this over time. But early on, we had the podcast together, and then we split. You were doing, you had like guys like Mark Aquilino, Pat Hunt.
Yeah, I was going to take more of the business focus. You were going to take the trades focus.
Correct.
We had our own tiles and stuff.
Yeah.
That became unsustainable.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. Realized that we're still working through how a podcast runs and, you know, what would land with us. But for the most part, everybody had been, you know, we had some pretty big names early on. R&R Builders came on early.
Yep.
Tim Mueller from Awesome Framers came on, and literally just wanted to spread the message and spread the word about their industry and what they were going through. So
yeah, huge thanks to those early folks. Obviously, celebrity over here, Jeremy, hanging out with Cowboy Cerrone and Hannah Barron and all these people. But the early days, those are the people. Brunt didn't exist. We didn't have a big podcast or any clout at all. So getting those folks on early those are the real G's, because they jumped on something that purely on the mission.
Yeah, and it was crazy. I mean, when you talk about being small, not on the map, I think we had a little Instagram for Bucket Talk at that time, and we were doing outreach, and these guys were literally saying, yeah, I'd be on. And
we even had one I recorded with Mark Aquilino, who's a buddy, president of Outdoor Pride, because we didn't, the technology is probably Jeremy's fault, but I'll take the blame. Recorded the entire podcast, wasn't recording. I had to call him. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know you're busy. 45 minutes gone. I'm like, we can do two things. We can not do your episode, or we can record again. He's like, absolutely, give me a call. And we recorded the same podcast the next week. So we had lots of learning along the way.
Yeah. So for people that have followed Brunt's story, you may have heard this once or twice, but we're getting a lot of new people, a lot of new listeners. Give us the story of Eric and how this came to be. Go far back to Eric in Bristol and how this kind of all came about.
Yeah, so pretty unique journey. No one would have ever predicted kind of how this path happened. There's actually a quote, I think late Steve Jobs said, which is, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can kind of connect it backwards. And that's like the exact reality of what happened here. Grew up in a blue collar household. Dad worked at Pratt & Whitney, building airplane. He was on the assembly line machining airplane parts for airplane engines.
Yeah.
Most of my childhood growing up, he was working third shift, sometimes second shift, but third shift, because you can make a little bit more money if you work third shift, but that means you're working through the night, sleep for a few hours, and then go out and roof with his friend's roofing company. And the reality is, come from Bristol, Connecticut, that's how a lot of families operated. We didn't really know much different. We didn't know what white collar was. We didn't have a lot of professionals. We had a few friends that their parents wore dress shirts, and we were like, they're the rich kids. They live on the other side of town. And so we didn't really, it was great because we didn't know this big world out there. And finally, when I was 14, I was like, I got to figure out how to start making some money. Like these, I'm starting to go to the movies with friends and stuff. I got to figure out how to pay for this stuff. My parents don't have unlimited money. And so I started that summer roofing at that roofing company, sitting on buckets, Bucket Talk. Then the next year, I was mowing my dad's lawn, starting to weed whack like my son. Some neighbors started to ask me to start to mow their lawns, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, they were paying me money. Now at the time, I didn't have the full business sense. I'm using my dad's lawnmower, my dad's weed whacker, his gas, all that stuff. So that you realize that now, but that's kind of how it started. And then some people were, it's kind of funny. The reason I kind of got to start was I was young. I was 15. I couldn't drive. So my mom, the first job I got out of the neighborhood, I had to actually figure out how to get to these jobs, and I didn't have equipment. So I remember folding up the lawnmower, the push lawnmower, putting it in the back of my mom's Chevy Trailblazer, and she'd drive me. I'd take it out. She'd leave me there. I'd do the job. She'd come pick me up. It was like, we probably spent more money doing that, but it was good. Remember the first job, I got a big mulching job, and I was like, I can't put mulch in the back of my mom's Trailblazer. And then I was like, okay, that's when I learned, like, okay, I can call a mulching company and they'll deliver it to the house. And then I was like, all I need is a few tools. And then my buddies, I was young for my grade, my buddies started getting their licenses and stuff so we can get the jobs. And that was kind of it. I thought at a young age, we were maybe making a couple $1,000 a year total. But at 15, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Imagine, and we're doing this night, we're doing this after school, we're doing this weekends. But the reality is kind of why I was getting jobs in business was I was underbid. I didn't know how to bid jobs. So I was pretty much getting taken advantage of. People were like, this job's gonna cost me like 10 grand. And I was like, dude, I'll do that for $1,000. I'll move all that rock. And I remember this job, I think I'd charge $1,000 for it. Should have charged 10. And a hard worker. I moved all this rock. My back was like broken. Took me like 2 weeks. And at the end, I remember I did the math on all the hours, and I had to pay one of my buddies. It was like, I ended up working for $2 an hour. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. And so that was kind of when I realized my parents were like, we didn't go to college, but maybe you should think about it. And I played soccer. And ended up getting into a crazy small and very entrepreneurial business school up here called Babson. And I said, all my buddies are going to the trades or the military out of high school. I said, worst case, I'm going to go there, have some fun. I'm going to party. I'm going to play soccer, and I'm going to quit in 2 years, come back and start that landscaping business back up. And then once I got there, it opened up my eye. I hadn't really left Bristol too much, to be honest. Opened up my eyes to this huge world of business. And fast forward, had a crazy 20s and then early 30s, had the opportunity to work for a serial entrepreneur that started Lids, the baseball cap company store. If you know why our hats are so fresh, that's maybe part of the reason. At that time, he started a big e-commerce business. And I was 23 at the time. I kept my mouth shut, did what I could just to keep the job, just to be around him, and just learned what growing and scaling an e-commerce business was, what brands were.
Yep.
And then finally, 2015, my bachelor party.
Yep.
Which you were there.
Yes, I was.
We went up to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, was obviously getting married the month later to my wife, who was your wife's college roommate.
Correct.
That's how this all got connected. And my buddies from Bristol, Connecticut, who were in the trades, come on up with us.
The boys.
Yeah, the boys. We're riding ATVs.
Yep.
Sitting out on the docks, riding boats, having a few beers.
Yep.
That's when they said, you're doing all this stuff in e-commerce and fashion and all this stuff. Why don't you start a brand for us? And, we wear the brands that you've heard for 100 years, and boots and pants. They've been around our whole lives. And they said, it'd be super cool. We don't want any of this junk that you're making. And that was when the light bulb went off. And then it was 3 years later, finally decided, all right, I've learned enough. I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. And I know it takes a team and people to surround myself with to fill the gaps, and quit a good job with a brand new house, a brand new mortgage, and a 6-month-old baby. Started working on Brunt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to talk about the boys. I've never seen such a tight-knit group of people, and I came in the later half, but names that you'll know, Danny Bolduck, Matt Marin, Skylar Ring,
Joey Martin.
Yep, Jeff and Craig Kasparian.
Identical twins.
All these boys have supported you back in the landscaping days. We go up to the bachelor party, you get that kind of, bug in your ear, and then you go off and start this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's back to talking to the guys. The guys helped you with some of the information, and then you turn around and name the boots after guys in the trades. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. So that was a funny story. So not a funny story. It's a unique story. So I remember started working on Brunt in 18. You were looped right in there. And what was unique, we've made a million mistakes. Every day I make mistakes, but we did two things right. One was, at that point, I had been out of the trades for 10 plus years and knew that from a brand perspective, at that point I was sitting behind, I'm in an office, I walk a lot because I got ADHD, but generally I'm in an office. And so I knew from a brand perspective, I'm going to build a brand that's going to speak to the modern day tradesperson that's at that time, the early 30s. I've got to make sure the brand resonates with them. And so I had, 10 years of business at that time. I had an agency partner who was helping me build the brand and develop it and professionalize it from what we believe in, what we feel, how we talk, our voice, to then getting to logo, getting to color, getting to all taglines, all that stuff. I was bouncing those things off of you, off of my buddies. And I knew they weren't going to give me crazy, this is how you build a brand. But I was like, hey, does this tagline resonate with you? Because I knew if it resonated with me and didn't resonate with them, it didn't matter. But if it resonated with them, even if I didn't like it, then we had something. It spoke to them. And so the whole brand, I would small little and I always ask like one simple question. I don't lead the witness. I'd ask like, tell me the emotion you feel when you read this. I'm excited. I'm inspired. I'm fired up, or doesn't do anything. It's like, okay. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to take that back, and we pieced that together. So it was the brand. And the brand, people confuse brand and marketing a lot. Brand is like the soul of the company. Marketing is how you distribute it, right? And so brand is what we believed in. And obviously there's a physical side of the brand, what it looks like, what it feels like, and so on and so forth. But there was the brand that I developed with those guys. And then we jumped into product. that was complete necessity. I hadn't been wearing work boots for 10 years. I went back home at my parents' house. I still had my work boots there. And I had these 4 buddies that I was talking to about the business really closely. It was Matt Marin, it was Skylar Ring, Jeremy Perkins, and Dan Bolduck. And they all had 4 very distinct jobs that required very different boots. You had Matt Marin at the time, who was a union drywaller, who was wearing mock-toe wedge boots from a brand that's been around for 50 to 100 years. You had Jeremy, who was a diesel mechanic at the time, wearing heavy duty boots. He's on the ground. He's grinding every day, kicking stuff. You had Dan Bolduck, who was in the water department at the time, needed some high stuff he's going in and out of water plants and water treatment plants. And you had Skylar Ring, who had come back from the Army at the time, and was a lineman at the time, going up in and out of buckets and so on and so forth. And so I worked with you guys, looked at the boots that you were wearing, did a ton of market research. But as we started developing the product, it was, okay, what do you love about that? You know, and these guys were wearing the same boot. They'd been buying you were buying 2 or 5 pairs at a time and keep it in the closet.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I had my totem pole, my going out boots, and then as they got dirtier, they kind of went down the spectrum.
Exactly. So they were buying these boots forever. So I was like, all right, what do you love about that boot, and what would you change? And as you think about the different boots that we ended up launching with, I took all that feedback in, put it into the boot, because I didn't know. I'm not a boot designer. I'm not a fashion designer, and we ended up bringing those products to life. And then when it came to the naming side of things, I remember the agency partner that I was with was like, oh, let's name them after different cities, or let's give them zip codes, or let's call them tool names, or a million different ideas, which are all great ideas and really creative. And I thought about it, it was like, okay, you know, naming conventions run out, you know, I was like, this thing, we're going to build a monster. This brand's going to be massive. It's going to be a household name one day. And so we need a naming system. It doesn't run out, right? You eventually run out of cities, you run out of zip codes, and one day we're going to have hundreds of boots and so on and so forth. And I was like, all right, these guys are the guys that helped me. And I was like, we're just going to call them their last names. And the only hang up I had was some of these guys have some weird names. And you see that in the product today, but it was a decision I made early on, and I pitched it to the agency partner, and they were like, this is pretty unique. And, you know, the spellings of some of these are a little tricky and the pronunciations are a little tricky, but I'm like, so authentic. It's after the guys that are actually doing the work. And ended up naming those first 4 boots, the Marin, the Perkins, the Ring, the Bolduck, and now every major product that we make, that we develop hand in hand with that guy or that gal or that person or a bunch of people in the trades, ends up getting the last name of the person that we really helped design it and build it. And we do that in everything we do. And as long as I'm here, that's always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they're the LeBron James or the Michael Jordans of the blue collar industry, and you know, we talk about heroes. A lot of those guys are my heroes. They're, you know, Skylar Ring has been at every major natural disaster in the past 10 or 15 years. You know, Danny Bolduck, he's out there supplying millions of gallons of water to clean drinking water to
60,000 residents, Bristol, Connecticut, my parents.
Yep. And, you know, Matt's been super successful hanging drywall, now a super. So, you know, these guys are, you know, perfecting their craft and impacting the trades. And if you ask them, you know, blue collar is their badge of honor. They wouldn't want it any other way. That's who they are, and that's who they'll always be. So I couldn't be prouder to have a boot named after me, but the guys, you know, feel the same way. And it's definitely been cool. But, you know, moving along, we've done some, early on, we've done some pretty amazing things. One of the coolest things, I still like the NASCAR story, our first NASCAR event. And I don't know, you want to walk through your view of that?
Yeah, so we launched Brunt. Obviously, podcast is going on still. We launched Brunt, and the business, the brand catches fire day one. The brand resonates. People are loving it. But we sold out of a lot of our early products, so we had some inventory issues. But so I wouldn't say the business was on fire because we didn't have enough product to do business. But that we get into that. So we launch in September. We blow out of everything that fall. We come back into inventory in December, January, start selling again. And we're starting to advertise on social media. I don't know if any of you have seen us on social media, but we happen to be pretty good at that. And I'm getting DMs like you wouldn't believe to my personal Facebook account, and from sports teams, from NASCAR teams, from dirt bike teams, from kids youth soccer teams, just sponsor. They assumed because we were running Facebook advertisements that we were probably a bigger company than we were. We were tiny. We had like 5 employees at the time, and
We're operating out of a contractor bay.
yeah, we were operating out of a contractor bay at that time, or maybe still my home garage.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we actually got to the contractor bay at that point. And I read every message. I'd reply to people. I'd be nice to them because you don't want to. Every person at that point, I was like, any person that's taking their time to respond to me, I got to respond to them. And even if the answer is no, I got to do it in a nice way. So I get one night, late night, I get a message at like 9:45, and I'm on all the time, and it's from this guy. His name is Mays Massey, Mays, Mayes, and he writes me this long thing about his son. He runs a tire shop down in Georgia. He runs a tire shop, and he runs a building. He's a building company, so he's double blue collar, a little bit like my dad. And he says, my son's, trying to make it in NASCAR, and would you guys want to sponsor a car? And that's one of those messages where it's like, thank you so much for your support and belief in the brand, but like, we can't sponsor a NASCAR. We're 6 months old at the time. Yep. It's like one day, that's a dream. 5 years from now, it's a dream. And he says, listen, it's early, but I see what's happening with Brunt. He goes, I'm betting that this company's going to blow up. He says, I'm willing to work with you. We'll go in together on a car. And we ended up getting the number. And I was like, oh, that's actually not as bad as I thought it was. And so I remember sweating bullets. I'm like, we were living by the dollar every single day. And I was like, okay, maybe this will be our big first marketing. It's going to be in the summer, so I got time to pay for it. They're going to give me some time. I'm like, all right, so maybe we'll try this.
Yeah, and to clarify, it's one race for that entire year.
Yeah, one race, just one race, not the entire season, one race. In the Xfinity Series.
Correct.
So also different than the Cup Series that race on. So race on Saturday. And I remember I got approval from the team. Team was supportive, all bought in. We were like, okay, this is going to be a big bet for us. Even though relatively small in the grand scheme of things, for us at that time, it was a real big bet.
We had everybody there. It was this was it. This was crazy.
Yeah, we brought up like, I don't know, 40, 50 people.
We all packed into a bus.
Yep. We pack in. We're telling everyone we're racing in NASCAR now. All of our friends are all cool. They're all supportive. You can BYOB at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We end up getting with the car comes 12 pit passes. So we end up bringing a bunch of the early supporters, right? We're sitting on the box, feel like this is a dream come true.
Was your dad there at the time?
I think my dad came to that game. Yeah.
So imagine this. Imagine all your friends, coworkers, and your family are there. This is it. This is the race.
This is the race. Yeah. So I think my dad was 79 or 80. He just turned 79 or 80. So it's cool. We show up there. Cool part of the story was we show up, we roll out onto the track. We see the car wrapped in Brunt for the first time. We actually have one sitting right there now, which is kind of surreal. But seeing the car wrapped in the brand was probably cool.
Yeah.
Coolest thing, right?
Yeah.
Just like, holy shit. It was almost like a we made it moment. We didn't make it, but it felt like it.
It did.
And so we go up to the box. We're all jacked up. We're all, can't wait to see the car. Seeing the car come in, car gets revved up, gets turned on. We're just like, this is unbelievable experience of a lifetime. And at that point, we were like, this might be the only time we ever do this. So we go out there. I'm like, oh my God, this is our moment. I think 30 laps in, we crash out. Mm-hmm. So our car gets rolled off, rolled into the pits. And when you crash out, even if you're sponsored the car, the pit box gets broken down. So you got to get off the pit box. You got to go somewhere.
So family,
you don't got to go home.
Friends,
everyone were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I'm like, how do we make this work? How do we figure this out? So team ends up taking the hood off the car that's wrapped in Brunt. That's actually right up there behind us. That's the actual hood.
Yeah.
Jeremy, they were going to like ship it to us or something, and
carried it out.
We were like, no, we don't think it's going to show up.
NASCAR
So like,
driver was in the stands having beers with us, and watching the rest of the race. But that for you, that was, for all of us, we were like, what does this mean?
Survive this? Yeah. Obviously, we didn't bet the company on a NASCAR race, but it was we thought it was a pretty, it could have been a really down moment, but we really spun the story of resilience and we're going to be back and, all that. We actually wrote a lot about that on social media. People loved it, ended up actually supporting the business, supporting the brand, and ended up being the first of many. We sponsored north of 20 NASCAR races with Mason, with Maze, and so on and so forth. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. And, but, that was kind of the launching of the business, marketing side, stuff like that. One of the things I want to touch on before we move on is kind of near and dear to our heart, other than, outside of Bucket Talk, which is bringing light to the trades and construction, is more of the philanthropic effort that that Brunt has. And I've been super passionate about this. I love it. But can you walk us through the boot donation program that Brunt started, the idea behind it, and where it is today?
Yeah. So when we launched the business, any part of an online, we were online only for the first 3 years. And when you run an e-commerce business, a part of that business is the returns business. It happens in physical retail as well, but it's very different. Fit, things of that nature. And so early on, we started to realize, even as a small company, you start to pile up some returns. Some returns come, they just try them on at home, they're just the wrong fit, they come back, they're perfect, they can get Reeboks, they're good. But obviously a lot of our early boots had the white soles. The minute those touch anything, they're done. You don't want to resell those to customers. It's not fair to the customers, and two, that's not what they ordered when they bought a brand new pair of boots. And so we damage it out, so to speak, and we wouldn't get rid of it because some of these things were like literally tried on like a garage floor, just happened to get a little dirt on it. So we were piling them up at the warehouse. At some point that pile became a mountain, and we said, okay, what are we going to do with this? There's a couple of options. And in e-commerce, what a lot of people do is they'll just destroy that stuff. They'll spend the money, throw it out, and it just felt super wasteful. And a lot of these boots were like 99% mint. If they were really worn, we have this trial on the job that no one else has in the industry. We let people wear the boots on the job to make sure they're perfect for them. They can send them back to us, and we'll give them a refund. And we did that just to show how much we believed in our product.
Correct.
Well, that stuff comes back garbage, but the stuff that barely is getting damaged out, we sequestered it. And one of our friends over at Outdoor Pride, I believe, Bill Butts, who works over there, was like, I'm at this trade school up the street. The students would love some boots. They need boots. A lot of them have never had work boots. A lot of them don't know how to tie laces, which was a surprise.
Yep.
That was a unique one.
Yep.
And we ended up doing our first donation. We loaded up our landscaping trailer, a couple hundred pairs, 600-700 pairs of boots up there, sat down. We fit the kids ourselves, the students ourselves. And it was incredible. It was a win-win. It was, our business is producing this. These students need it. They're the future of the country, the future of the trades, the future of what we're trying to build here. We don't need money in return. We don't no quid pro quo. We give you a pair of boots, you got to buy something. It was just, let's donate them to the students. I always believe you put good out into the world, comes back to you in some way, shape, or form. And now Jeremy's running the new boot program, which has been enhanced. Donated 20,000 pairs.
Over the course of the business, we are pretty much at 20,000 pairs.
20,000 pairs.
This year alone, we've donated around a little over 16,000 pairs.
16,000 pairs.
So we ramped up the boot donation program in the beginning of 2025. There's such a high demand that currently we are out of donation boots. Obviously come the holiday season, we're going to get an influx, but it's been super amazing. There's been people from the company, and you in the early days, I mean, we'd be at gyms talking to students, you'd be giving presentations, again, tying shoes for kids. Eric was a stickler for when they came back from the warehouse that we'd go through all of the boots and make sure they were as close to new as possible. And so we're late hours scrubbing boots, making sure everything, laces were tied, and it was fantastic. And the impact that it made on the kids, the outpouring of support from the faculty, the schools, the parents was just, it was heartfelt. And now, we have a larger team. Some of the new folks are now going to these schools, seeing not only the resurgence of trade schools in general. I mean, there's just locally, there's over 20 or 30 schools in the state of Massachusetts that now have brand new skilled trade high schools, automotive, horticulture, auto body. One school, down in the Cape had a whole marine class. So on marine diesel engines and mercury outboards and you name it. But yeah, I mean, and their numbers are up, and we don't have enough to give out, and we'd love to, but it's been unbelievable. But
we've got a goal by 2030. So we've given about 20,000. The goal is to give 100,000 pairs of boots to trade school students by 2030.
Yep.
We think where the business is headed and the growth that we have our eyes on ahead, we think it's going to be achievable. And yeah, I'd say the best part of the program is, obviously spending time, shaking hands, congratulating the students. But afterwards, I get DMs from parents and from people that are just like, I heard my nephew or my son or my daughter got a pair. They're so thankful. They're so happy. And it's a really special program.
All right. So cool. That's actually a good segue. So, that's the history of Bucket Talk, the guests that we've had on, a background into your story, which was actually fitting because first episode 1 was Eric interviewing me. Episode 100 is actually me interviewing you, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
2026 Bucket Talk, boot donation program, the business in general. I mean, you're in wholesale, retail, expand, you name it. What's on your plate?
A lot. I'd say, the business is the focus, right? Obviously, the family's the most important, but then the business is the focus. And the good news is the family's fully on board. Wife understands, not only the brand, the business, but the brand's going to probably be our family's legacy at some point. The boys may want to work there. They may not want to work there, but, there's... the brand has gotten to a size, and so she's supportive. She's on board. She understands when I have to jump on a plane in a moment's notice or come home at 11 at night or wake up at 5. So, and the boys love the brand, love the business, and they love coming here. And so that, by the way, key, if that wasn't in place, this would be a disaster. So that provides me the opportunity to spend a lot of time on the business, thinking about the business, thinking about the future, thinking about what we're doing, where we're going, travel, around the country, meet with our wholesale partners, go to some of our sponsorship partner events, have a little fun along the way. And I'm really just, starting to lay the foundation for long-term. We used to live day by day. And then the second year, maybe we lived week by week. Then we lived month by month. Last year, we probably were living quarter by quarter. This year, we're starting to get a little bit out of that. And now I'm starting to think 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, laying out, like, not just dreaming, like putting down plans with the team in there. We're building financial projections. We are thinking, what is this bit, like 100,000 boots in 2030? How big do we need to get to produce that? Like, there's got to be real numbers, real math there. The impact we want to have on the trade students, the amount of customers we want to serve.
Right.
The apparel business is on fire right now. And so really right now is longer range. It's tricky is a business that's growing this fast, 5 years old. There's days I walk in and I'm mostly firefighting for the first few hours. I walk in, stuff happen that I didn't expect I had to deal with. But then once I can pull up, usually in the evening, 6 to 10-ish is when I can start laying some longer term range plans down and the foundation and what does that mean from employees and team and financing, all the nerdy stuff of business is got to make it all work.
You know what? Drumbeat never gets old, and this makes me proud to be a part of this company and work side by side with you. Is in the early days, and you didn't say it a lot, even to us, that late nights, early mornings, you were out at bars or job sites. You were interviewing guys, you were buying guys lunch or a beer, just to know more about their industry. And, you kept it to yourself, just keep grinding, keep your finger on the pulse, but you've never lost that. And then again, it wasn't a week or two ago, we had a meeting, and now we have 100 plus people, and
106.
And then the message from you, again, was 2026 job sites. Mm-hmm. And 5 years in the making. and the CEO, talk about financials, product development, all that stuff. But, just sum it up. Why job sites,
Yeah, so that was, the business is getting bigger. We're getting nice offices. We're getting, not nice offices, but we're getting offices. The place, it's easy to lose focus on, as businesses evolve, some things you need to leave behind, right? Like the podcast wasn't sustainable for me. It was actually getting worse with me there. That was something, the torch needed to be passed. But there's some things that got you there are going to get you to the next place. And if you leave them behind, you're probably going to falter. And that same thing of talking to the original 4 guys, I was dying to get to a bigger blue collar group because all my buddies from home, I get them on the phone. You were local. I was up in Massachusetts. I didn't have a big community up here. So I was, like you said, literally, hey, reaching out to friends. You know anyone that works in the trades? Can I take them out for beers? And it's like, what is this, a date? It's like, no, I just want to ask you what you're doing for a job, and I'll buy you your drinks, buy you your dinner, all that stuff. And what I learned by doing that was so valuable for the brand, for the product, for the company. It became second nature. And as you think about the brands that are in this space, think about any brand, any other work brand, any other boot brand, any other apparel brand. 1, Google who the CEO is. 2, check their social media. 3, do you think they're going out on Friday, Saturday nights having beers with people from the trades? And it's a small thing, but it makes such the difference because I'm so close to the customer. The team's now starting to learn that I have a pulse on something politically happens, something culturally happens. I know what is the blue collar view on that?
Right.
And so, at times the business, we get busy, we put our heads down and we wake up. And so I felt like we were drifting a little bit, and not for a long period of time. It was just like, oh my God, we got so busy. And I was like, we got to make sure we are pounding job sites, buying guys lunch, buying them beers, spending so much time, because we're going to end up like every other workwear brand. If we lose that, we're going to be sitting in so one day, maybe fancy offices, which I probably won't let happen. But we're going to think about sitting in a conference room and trying to develop work boots and work pants for people when you've been a professional for 40 years. Mm-hmm. It's so crazy to me, but it is so common in the industry that's my drumbeat, which is we need to be on the road, hanging out with these people, shooting podcasts in their shops, on the job, whatever it may be, just because you pick up the culture, you pick up what they believe in, you pick up what they like, what they don't like, and it's separated Brunt from the pack. It's the only reason we're here today.
Yeah, and it's even crazier that you've gone as far as to as part of your mission, we have now hired tradesmen into the company. Mm-hmm. We're looking to expand that, as we go to 2030. But we got a new influx of a couple of landscapers,
mm-hmm.
guy from the fishing industry, and a few other, and a few other folks. So, everybody in the company for the most part has either strong blue collar ties or has been in the trades themselves. So it's been pretty cool. So, obviously we're talking about, how job sites are very important and whatnot. But, lastly, one thing that I hear on the road from the Facebook comments, in the early days where people knew that it was you, mm-hmm. Obviously you have a team, but you're still in there,
yep.
which is crazy. But on top of that, you're still pounding the pavement. You're still talking to the tradesmen on the road. You're still getting feedback, negative and positive.
Yep.
Walk us through it a little bit.
Yeah. So early on, right, we started, what really fueled the beast was obviously in an e-commerce business, you get customer service. People call in, they have order issues. So that's where a lot of people in these businesses, they'll spend their time reading those emails. Those are emails, usually they're issues with the service or the provider or whatever. Sometimes it's product, and you can learn a lot there. There's gold there. But what was really, really unique is, we started running ads for the business. I was in some of those ads, and I was getting pummeled with DMs, right? On my Facebook page, my personal page, which is still around today. And I remember one thing went off one night. I wrote this post, and I woke up in the morning, I had like a couple hundred messages. And my son was still really young. I had only had Maverick at the time. And so it was pretty easy at the house. My wife was there, and it was like a Saturday morning. And I was like, what do I do here? Normally you just like, most people probably just ignore it. And I was like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to respond to every single person. I remember talking to my wife. I was like, I need like the next 3 hours. I went in the room, sat on the floor and just hammered every single response. Some people were like, congrats, you're killing it, you're trying, blah, blah, blah. Other people were like, hate you, hate the product, hate what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. You have no idea what you're doing. Brands have been around for 100 years. Don't even try, give up, all this stuff. And I just remember 2 things. One was respond to every single customer, hands down. And as a company, the business is really big now, but we're still on social media, on our Instagram pages, on our Facebook pages, on our TikTok pages, YouTube. It's not a nice to respond. It's a mandate that we respond to every single comment, every single email. If you're one of the few out there that maybe we missed, sometimes there are some technology glitches, but we got teams every single day that are going in there making sure people have questions, we're responding. And what's unique though, from the early days when I was doing it all myself, I did it for the first few years, started responding to those folks. And it was 1, everyone gets a response. And 2, whether they're being mean and they're hating or they're being supportive, is always responding in somewhat of a positive light. I had a few early days. I had some days where I'd go after people. Those are the fun old days. But now it's, hey, you don't like what I appreciate your thoughts, appreciate it. But listen, we're going to keep working hard. And I know you don't think we're going to be around. I remember a lot of people, you're not going to be around in a year. You're not going to be around in 2 years. I appreciate the input. I appreciate that you're concerned about me, but I'm gonna figure this out. And it was just turning negatives into positives. And that would sometimes it would go on, didn't matter, but sometimes I'd turn people around and be like, I just like completely laced this, young guy, and he came back with something positive, and that was kind of how we always handled it.
I mean, you don't shy away from your problems. You face them head on, and that's kind of, that's blue collar mentality, and that's the level of standard that you've held yourself to, which is, I still love when the boys are like, Eric's in the DMs today. So.
I love jumping back in the game.
No, and you still do to this day, and I love every minute of it.
But I'd say that's where a lot of, obviously the namesakes help us develop the product, but the DMs, Instagram, Facebook, that's where a lot of the knowledge to make our product right. Our first product was from different factories, different partners, so on and so forth. It was good, but it wasn't great. The feedback that we got through the DMs on, could you tweak this? Can you add this? Or this is failing, or this is breaking. I did 40,000 comments in like 6 months. I responded every single one myself on one post. By the time you just think about that amount of volume, there's the amount of stuff that was going through my head. I was doing that 10, 12 hours a week. I was doing it right before I went to bed, right when I woke up, and then on the weekends. Yeah. I was so close to the customer that I knew exactly what to do to the existing products. I knew what products we didn't have in our line that our customers wanted. And that feedback from the actual person on the job wearing it. And the good news about the DMs, that was all over the country. Those are people in California, Texas. I was getting stuff from all over, help really fuel the business.
Yep. So, we don't really have much to wrap up other than the fact that this is our 100th episode. You're back on the bucket.
I was on the bucket last night. Santa was here.
But, it was good to have you by my side. You've been integral in my life, and I've looked up to you. You've helped me out personally through my change in life from being a mechanic to where I am today, and proud to call you a friend. Again, thank you for being here. This is awesome, and I look forward to your new podcast, hopefully in 2026.
Working on something.
Yeah.
It's not fully dialed yet. Be very different, but should be cool.
Yep. So here's to 100.
Cheers to 100, brother.